Jesus tells us in Luke 21, the parallel passage of what our scripture reading was today. The nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines and pestilences, and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven. Today I want us to look at some of these signs of the times, if you will. I got a couple of dates I want to throw out and see if any of you can tell me what it is, and I'll tell you in advance it's not my birth date. November the 11th, 1755. Does it ring a bell? Lisbon earthquake. There you go, Jody. May 19, 1780. Pardon me? The sun became black and the moon became as blood. November 13th, 1833. The stars fell. You guys are doing pretty good. August 27th, 1883. Krakatoa. 50,000 people died when that erupted, and the shock waves from Krakatoa circled the earth 7 times. Aren't you glad you weren't there? May 8th, 1902. That was 1906. 1902, Pali. The eruption of Pali, superheated gases of 1,800 degrees moved at 30 miles an hour from the summit of that mountain. It killed 36,000 people in 3 minutes. And there was only one survivor in Saint Pierre, Martinique. Everyone else was killed by the eruption of Pali. December 28, 1908. Messina, Sicily. 160,000 people died, and 170,000 square miles were shaken, and 98% of the dwellings in Messina were destroyed. The whole village left homeless. December 16, 1920. We're getting closer to my birthday anyway. Kansu, China, and the earthquake killed 180,000 people. September the 1st, 1923. Tokyo and Yokohama, 143,000 died, and both cities were practically totally destroyed with 600,000 homes gone. May 31st, 1935. Quetta, India, 56,000 people died, and 100 miles of surrounding area were totally devastated. Now let's bring it a little closer. We're past my birthday now. Sunday, May 22nd, 1960. Pardon me? No, that wasn't that far back. This was the great Chilean earthquake. The most powerful earthquake ever to be recorded. It rated 9.5. What a reading. The most powerful there ever was. The resulting tsunami affected not only Chile, but Hawaii, Japan, the Philippines, eastern New Zealand, southeast Australia, and the Aleutian Islands all the way up in Alaska. It affected more than 150,000 square miles. As a matter of fact, that earthquake prompted one of the Hawaii Five-0 episodes in 1969 because of this tsunami that hit Hilo, Hawaii. The tremor caused localized tsunamis that severely battered the Chilean coast with waves up to 82 feet high. The main tsunami raced across the Pacific Ocean from Chile at a speed of several hundred miles per hour to totally devastate Hilo, Hawaii, killing 61 people all the way on the other side. Waves were as high as 35 feet, more than 6,200 miles from the epicenter. 6,200 miles away, and they're still 32 feet high. It raced as far as Japan and into the Philippines. As a matter of fact, in Japan, the tsunami arrived 22 hours after the earthquake itself happened, and it killed 142 people. There have been various estimates put forth on the total number of fatalities from the earthquake and tsunamis, citing figures as high as 5,700 killed, and the monetary cost as high as $800 million, which in today's money would be about 5.8 billion. It has been estimated that about 40% of the houses in Valdivia were destroyed, leaving 20,000 people without homes. And 2 days after the earthquake, Coroncalle, a volcanic vent close to Pelleju volcano, erupted. Other volcanoes probably erupted as well, but none were recorded because of the lack of communications coming out of Chile because of all of the devastation down there. So we go just a few years from that to 1964 now. March 27th, 1964. It was the earthquake that hit Alaska. It hit with a force of 12,000 Hiroshima-sized bombs. 3 islands were totally relocated up there. 2 mountain ranges shifted 50 feet to the south, and it did over $50 million in damages in 1964. Then we come to 1970, and Yungay, Peru, 66,794 people died and 600,000 homes again destroyed. July 28, 1976, Tangshan, China, over 75,000 people perished. Over 1 million people were injured. There was a great light that came up from the open chasm in the earth that was seen as far away as 200 miles. And a cornfield not far from there was completely knocked over by the heat coming up from that chasm, and leaves of trees were burnt to a crisp. May 18, 1980. Mount St. Helens. Mount St. Helens explosion, it had an impact of 50 million tons of TNT, 2,500 times greater than the bomb that leveled Hiroshima. In just a few hours, it had thrown up almost as much ash, mud, and molten minerals as Mount Vesuvius had done when it buried Pompeii and Herculanus in AD 79. It belched 8 billion tons of ash 12 miles up into our atmosphere. 1 ton for every person on the planet. I was living in North Dakota at the time, and the ash from Washington was dropping on us in North Dakota. It desolated 156 square miles. Shock waves leveled 44,000 acres of fir trees, which was about 2 billion board feet of wood, or enough, my friends, to build 200,000 5-room homes. The boiling mud traveled at 30 miles an hour and overflowed local riverbanks. It smashed bridges, swallowed homes, and killed millions of fish. Some rivers got so hot that the fish actually jumped out of the water. God said, I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. And great earthquakes shall be in divers places. Do you know that before Mount St. Helens exploded, the people in the know, if you will, came out and said in People magazine, Donald Minow said, the probability of a big eruption is very low. These are the guys supposed to know. Another one, Robert Christensen, chief geologist of the U.S. Geological Survey, said in Time magazine, Mount St. Helens is simply not ready to blow off. But within 3 weeks, a 1,200 foot by 1,700 foot crater formed on the north side and began to bulge 4 to 6 feet every day. God told us, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. You are all the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of the darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep, as do others, but let us watch and be sober. You remember Sunday, December 26, 2004? The Indian Ocean earthquake and tsunami. It was an undersea megathrust earthquake that was unbelievable. The earthquake was caused when the Indian plate was subducted by the Burma plate and triggered a series of devastating tsunamis along the coast of most land masses bordering the Indian Ocean, killing 230 to 280,000 people in 14 countries, and inundating coastal community with waves up to 100 feet high. It was one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. The magnitude was smaller than the Chilean earthquake. It was between 9.1 and 9.3, depending upon where you were at. But anything when you get up in the nines is a mega earthquake. It was the third largest earthquake ever recorded on a seismograph. The third largest. The first one, Chile. The second one, Alaska. The third one, this one. All in completely different parts of the world. The earthquake had the longest duration of faulting ever observed. It continued to do that from 8 to 10 minutes. Constant convulsions. It caused the entire planet, this ball that we live on, to vibrate and triggered other earthquakes as far away as Alaska. The hypocenter of the main earthquake was approximately 100 miles north of a little island off the western coast of northern Sumatra, and it was at a depth of 19 miles. I found it interesting as I researched some of this. Most of these earthquakes were 19 or 19 and a half miles under the ocean. That's a long way down there. That's almost as far as it is from here to my house. I wouldn't want to swim down that deep even if I could. The northern section of the Sunda megathrust ruptured, and the rupture had a length of 810 miles long. The earthquake was so unusually large in a geographical and geological extent. An estimated 1,000 miles of fault surface slipped, if you will, or ruptured about 50 feet along the subduction zone where the Indian plate slides or subducts under the Burma plate. So 1,000 miles of it, one plate has slipped down under the other one. The slip did not happen instantaneously, but it took place in two phases over several minutes of time. It slipped, and then a few minutes later, it slipped again. The seismographic and acoustic data indicate that the first phase involved a rupture about 250 miles long and 60 miles wide, 19 miles under the ocean. The largest rupture ever known to have been caused by an earthquake. The rupture continued to proceed at a speed of 1.7 miles per second. That's 6,200 miles per hour. Supersonic speed. It activated the Mount Lucer volcano as well as the Mount Tailang, which happened 4 months later as a result of this earthquake. The energy released on the Earth's surface by the earthquake and the tsunami was estimated at 26 megatons of TNT. That's 550 million times more than that of Hiroshima. 550 million times more, or about the amount of energy that the United States uses over a period of 370 years. That's a lot of energy, friends. The only recorded earthquakes greater were the ones I just mentioned in Chile and in the Prince William Sound of Alaska. The earthquake there generated a seismic oscillation of the Earth's surface up to 8 to 12 inches. Oscillation, a movement. When I read that, I got to thinking that the earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard. Just this one caused the entire surface of the earth to oscillate 8 to 12 inches. The shock waves of the earthquake were felt across the planet as far away as Oklahoma, just north of us here. The earthquake's effects were still detectable as an oscillation of the Earth's surface for more than 4 months after it had happened. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands shifted southwest by 4 feet and 1 inch. The islands were moved out of their places, my friends. Yeah, only 4 feet and 1. I wouldn't want to be on an island that's moving at all, even if it is only 4 feet and 1 inch. And it also sank 3 feet and 3 inches. It's closer to sea level now, but 3 feet 3 inches. The earthquake was followed by the tsunami, sending waves of 620 miles per hour toward the coastlines, which reached 80 feet high along the coast, and in some places where it traveled inland, it was 100 feet high. And in many places, it actually went inland as far as 1.2 miles from the coast. Try to outrun a wave for 1.2 miles. Because of the distances involved, the tsunami took anywhere from 15 minutes to 7 hours to reach the various coastlines that were impacted. The tsunami also reached Antarctica, as well as the western coasts of North and South America. Sitsi Vadala, the Indonesian Minister of Health at the time, estimated the death toll to be as high as 220,000 in Indonesia alone, making it a total casualty of everywhere of 280,000. Measured in lives lost, this is one of the 10 worst earthquakes in recorded history, as well as the single worst tsunami in history. The countries where deaths occurred because of that were Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, Thailand, Somalia, Burma, Maldives, Malaysia, Tanzania, Chicos, Bangladesh, South Africa, Yemen, Kenya, and Madagascar. All had people die from that over in the Indian Ocean. But I want to jump to another one here. It's a 9.1, Friday, March 11, 2011. You see how close we're getting to where we're at now. It was the Tohoku earthquake, and it had a magnitude of 9.0. The epicenter was 43 miles east of Oshika Peninsula there in Japan, and the hypocenter at an underwater depth of also 19 miles. It was the most powerful known earthquake to have ever hit Japan, and the fifth most powerful earthquake in the world since modern record keeping began in 1900. The earthquake triggered powerful tsunami waves that reached heights of up to 133 feet, 13 stories, and which traveled as far as 6 miles inland. So if you think you'd have trouble running 1.2, try 6. The earthquake moved Honshu, the main island of Japan. Now here it is, another island being moved 8 feet to the east. That island is 8 feet further east than it used to be. And it shifted the earth on its axis by estimates between 4 and 10 inches. It generated sound waves that were detected by low orbiting GOC satellites way up above us. And now we come to September the 12th of 2012. The police of Japan finally, after nearly a year, are able to release statistics of the devastation. And so the Japanese National Police Agency reported confirmed 15,833 dead, 6,150 injured, 2,651 people missing, as well as 129,225 buildings that had totally collapsed, with a further 254,204 buildings half collapsed, and another 691,766 buildings that were damaged. Do we see, friends, that we are looking at 1 million devastated homes? The Japanese Prime Minister, Naoto Kan, said, in the 65 years after the end of World War II, this is the toughest and most difficult crisis for Japan. Around 4.4 million households in northeastern Japan were left without electricity, and another 1.5 million without water. It's one thing to live without electricity. It's another one to live without water. And as has happened in the Philippines, a lot of these, there were a lot of rains going on, but still the people couldn't get water because of the pollution and the other stuff that was taking place. The tsunami there in Japan caused nuclear accidents, primarily the level 7 plus meltdowns at 3 reactors. At least 3 of the nuclear reactors suffered explosions due to hydrogen gas that had built up in their outer containment buildings. Residents within a 12-mile radius of the one plant were moved 12 miles away. They were told to evacuate at least 12 miles, and the other plant to evacuate 6.2 miles. But the United States government kept telling them you need to evacuate them at least 50 miles from each of these plants. So what will happen from this, we do not know. The World Banks have estimated the economic cost at $235 billion, making it the costliest national disaster in world history. I spent a few hours going through charting all the earthquakes over more years than I want to count. And do you know that from Sinai to Christ, we have 49 recorded earthquakes? And then after that, there were only 6 or 9 a year. But when we come all the way up to 1900 to 1945, 1900 to 1949, 50 years, there were 17,488 earthquakes. In the last 10 years, there have been 21,734. And in the last 40 years, there have been 67,780 of them. You see, friends, the magnitude just keeps increasing. Is God trying to tell us something? Is man more interested in explaining earthquakes and volcanoes and other violent phenomena than in listening to God's voice speaking through them? There are over 600 active volcanoes and 10,000 inactive ones along 3 belts which closely parallel the earthquake regions. Have you ever read about the Ring of Fire? That Ring of Fire runs along Chile, where we looked at that biggest earthquake ever, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, the west coast of Central America, Mexico, California, and then it drops offshore from Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, and it strikes land again at the southeast coast of Alaska. It moves westward along the Aleutian Islands, touching Kamchatka on the eastern extremity of the Soviet Union, then southwest to the Japanese islands, Formosa, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Then it moves southeast through New Guinea to the Solomon Islands and ending in a great mass of earthquake activity in the Fuji Islands. A ring of fire around the world, my friends, if you visualize where these places were all at. One arm of this ring of fire stretches out through Indonesia, up to Burma, across the Himalayas, through Iran, Iraq, Turkey, and Greece. In addition to the earthquakes and things, there are a lot of other things that are happening in this world. In addition to that, we see that the world is a smoldering powder keg. God says the depths of the earth are the Lord's arsenal. But besides the earthquakes, the tsunamis, and volcanoes, our planet is bombarded continuously with tornadoes, hurricanes, typhoons. People have asked me this last week, what's the difference between a hurricane and a typhoon? And it's all geographical. They are the same thing. The only difference between hurricanes, cyclones, or typhoons is geographical. Hurricanes occur in the Atlantic and on the American Pacific coast. The ones on the Pacific coast seldom have any casualties with them. It's the East Coast, the Atlantic ones that are bad over here. Typhoons occur in the South China Sea or Northwest Pacific Ocean. And the tropical cyclones occur in the Indian Ocean and in the Southwest Pacific Ocean. That's why on the news you hear of the one in the Philippines as being a typhoon. The news broadcasters in the beginning were calling it a hurricane because that's what all of them are called over here. But when you move to that part of the world, they become typhoons. The tropical cyclones in the Indian Ocean and the Southwest Pacific. And variations such as tropical storm is often used in India, or severe tropical cyclone, which is sometimes used around Australia, and they're used to designate the range of these tropical cyclones or their various strengths, but they're all the same: typhoon, cyclone, hurricane. Now, I'm sure most of us here remember hurricanes like Jean, Katrina, or even last year's Sandy, but have you maybe forgotten one called Mitch? Mitch was a powerful one. October 26, 1998. As a matter of fact, right after that, I used Mitch as an example of the coming of Christ in some meetings out in Weatherford. Hurricane Mitch had winds of 180 miles per hour. It spawned 10 tornadoes and 8 inches of rain. And it had 60-mile-an-hour gusts with it. It was devastating as it hit Honduras. It killed 6,420 dead. In Honduras, it left 11,085 missing. Another 11,762 were injured, but the hurricane affected 1,932 or 1,932,482 people. That's how large it was. It hit Belize, Honduras, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and it was big. We've forgotten it. See, that's the thing. We know these things when they happen. Give us a few years, we forget about it. And so God wakes us up again. And Typhoon Haiyan, that just hit the Philippines, is now the strongest cyclone or typhoon on record to make landfall. The biggest ever to hit land. Tacloban, with a population of 200,000 people, and the capital of the island of Leyte, was ground zero for this monster storm. 195-mile-an-hour winds with gusts exceeding 220 miles an hour. You know, when I was a kid, and some of you probably did this, before the days cars had air conditioners in them, we used to like to stick our hands out and see how long we could hold it before the wind would blow it back. And that's going 60 or 70 miles an hour down the road. Can you imagine what a 220-mile-an-hour gust of wind will do to you? It will lay you right down and everything else on top of you. It was a Category 5 typhoon, but more than this, it retained that Category 5 status over the Philippines for 48 hours. 2 days, bombarded. 11.8 million people have been affected by this typhoon. 11.8 million. 2.5 million people may be in need of emergency food aid right now. Problem is, how do you get the food to them? Some areas they can't get in. I just heard the other day there's a big thing going on because commercial airlines are coming in there taking up the space where they need to bring in the other stuff, and the commercial airlines won't take any of the people out of there because they don't have the money. More than 300,000 people are in 1,223 evacuation centers. And more than 11,000 people are in host communities. In total, there are 921,200 displaced people over there right now. And 4,000, as of yesterday afternoon, confirmed dead. It's probably bigger than that now. And another 1,100 missing, most of which will be added to that 4,000, I'm sure. And we're still watching all of this on the news. People without food, water, or a home. The dead being laid along the side of the road to be picked up by garbage trucks. This little dead girl that was found by her dog just a few feet from where her brother had died. The stench of human waste mingled with death and decaying. We can't even begin to imagine what that smells like now. You see some of the pictures anymore on the news, and the people have got things over their face now. It has become so bad. And How many of those who have survived will perhaps succumb to pestilence that is sure to follow? They're fearful now of cholera outbreaks as well as a couple of other things. My friends, one day soon there will be thunders and lightnings and a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty and so great an earthquake. And the heavens shall depart as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. For every island shall have fled away, and the mountains will not be found. The earth is utterly broken down, said Isaiah. The earth is clean dissolved. The earth is moved exceedingly. The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again. Thus God will destroy the wicked from off of the earth, but the righteous will be preserved in the midst of these commotions, as Noah was preserved in the ark. God will be their refuge, and under his wings shall they trust. The psalmist said, because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation, there shall no evil befall thee. In the time of trouble he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. God's promise is, because he hath set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. Right now, friends, I want to make another appeal for those who have that need in the Philippines. It's too late to help the people in any of these others that I've mentioned. It's gone. But there are people now that are suffering. They're hungry. They're thirsty. They need medicine. They need to know that people care for them. And yes, there are people responding from around the world, and we can sit back and say, oh, well, everybody's doing something. Well, if everybody's doing something but you, something's wrong. We all need to be helping these folk, either through this special offering to Adra today, or if you know people over there that have a need, or you know somebody that knows people over there, help them that way. But get help to those people who have to have help right now. I want to leave you with what Peter says. If you'll take your Bible and go to 2 Peter with me. 2 Peter chapter 3. It's a verse I hope you all know very well. Beginning with verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. Seeing then all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought you to be in all holy conversation and godliness, looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for a new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness. Wherefore, beloved, seeing that you look for such things, be diligent that you may be found of him in peace, without spot and blameless.